Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to Picture This, where we use illustrations, pictures, object lessons to lead us to biblical truth. 2 Corinthians 4:7 says, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us." So picture this, an old, ordinary clay jar, nothing impressive, maybe chipped, maybe cracked, maybe fragile. If you saw it in a yard sale, you'd probably pass it by. But what if I told you that inside that jar was a treasure, and a treasure beyond any price? Suddenly, the jar doesn't matter so much, the treasure does. That's the image that Paul is giving us in 2 Corinthians 4:7. We're the jars, weak, fragile, ordinary, but inside, God has placed something priceless, the gospel of Jesus Christ. Can I take you back for a moment to when I was a kid? There was one thing that I did look forward to as a child. It's called Cracker Jacks. In fact, I actually don't even really like Cracker Jacks, but I did look forward to, not the caramel popcorn, but I looked forward to the fact that inside every box was a prize, a treasure inside every box. And so this treasure, this little prize, that's what mattered most. You don't buy Cracker Jacks for the popcorn. I bought them for the prize. The same is true for us. On the outside, we may look unimpressive, but inside, God has placed something extraordinary. So there's three big truths that I want to leave you with from 2 Corinthians chapter 4. Number one, the treasure is greater than the jar. Jars in Paul's day were for common use. Sometimes they were cheap, sometimes they were breakable. That is us. But the treasure inside, the gospel message of Jesus Christ who lived and died and rose again, is priceless. You don't have to be impressive for God to use you. Your weakness doesn't disqualify you. In fact, it's the opposite. It magnifies God's power. Number two, the cracks let light shine in. Paul says that we are afflicted but not crushed. We are perplexed but not driven to despair. The picture that Paul is describing for us is one of a military term where it's like a boot against the throat. Life will press us. Life will try to break us. We even have scars because of life. But here's the secret. The cracks in the jar don't hide the treasure. They let it shine out. Sometimes God uses our struggles more than he uses our strengths. Number three, the jar is temporary. The treasure is eternal. Paul calls all his hardships, his beatings, his rejection, shipwreck, light and momentary. Why? Because he knew that the treasure inside was preparing him for an eternal glory. You see, we don't measure life by the jar. We measure it by the treasure. And so when you're feeling discouraged, remember, you are not defined by your cracks. It's the treasure of the gospel. It's Jesus Christ in us that counts. Facing hardship? Endurance points people to Christ, right? What Christ does in us through and in the midst of these difficulties and hardships helps people see Christ in us. As a church, let's stop polishing jars and let's start showing treasure. Be real, be open. Let Jesus shine through, even in our brokenness. So picture this, not just an individual jar, but picture a shelf full of cracked, ordinary jars. You see, on their own, they're nothing, but the treasure shines through all of these, and the room shines from the glory. That's you. That's me. Fragile. Yes. Ordinary, probably, but filled with the glory of Christ, because in every jar there is a treasure. Thanks for joining me on this edition of Picture This. God bless.